Good evening. I'd like to welcome all of you to the special meeting and work session of Tuesday, September 10th. Call the meeting to order and ask for approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. You still okay?
Yeah, that one presentation didn't load though. Fire departments.
What's it? We can do it next month.
We'll table that item.
That one does.
Okay, so first on the agenda, we have public comment. If anyone in the audience would like to make public comment, please raise your hand. When you come up, you'll state your name and mailing address. Try to keep the comments under 3 minutes and be kind and respectful. Is there anyone that would like to make public comment? Ken?
I'm Jan Siebert-Ormond for the Acola Creek Awareness Project, also known as ECAP, PO Box 181, Cannon Beach 97110. Dear Mayor and City Councilors, tonight we'd like to voice our continued support for the Acola Creek Estuary Stabilization Project and hope that you will also. We're so grateful for all those who've come together to find a long-term viable solution to protect both the Acola Creek Estuary and the buildings of Breakers Point. To the City of Cannon Beach, the Friends of the Dunes, FEMA, the Columbia River Estuary Study Task Force, CRESS, the Surfrider Foundation, the Oregon Coast Alliance, as well as numerous others, we thank you all for persevering in this extremely important endeavor. May this project come to fruition and serve as a model solution for our region for many years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
Thanks, Jan.
Anyone else in the audience? Come on up.
Hi, it's good to see you again. I'm Kat Hazard. I'm the Oregon Regional Manager for the Surfrider Foundation. We've been very excited to be working with the city, Breakers Point, Crest, and the engineering team at Integral and others to find a solution to the ongoing erosion issues on the north bank of Acola Creek. So I'm really looking forward to the presentation tonight, and I'm excited for you all to see it. You're probably going to hear a lot about the technical side of things tonight, and you might not hear as much about the people. There are many other Surfrider members and members of the community that I'm speaking on behalf of. So I just want to talk about what this project means for this community and the really incredible opportunity we have here to do some good. We all recognize that we're in need of a long-term solution at Acola Creek. It's an extremely dynamic area in between waves, flow, dunes, seals on the other expecting more waves. There's a lot at play. There has been ongoing years threatening homes and access point. However, we are and have been opposed to armoring the shoreline, and this area is no exception. In 2020, Surfrider opposed a permit for a sheet pile wall, which at Breakers Point, which the city denied. Additionally, in this case, armoring is not allowed at this property, so we recognize that we must explore alternatives as really just the only solution on the table at this point. Surfrider will always advocate for nature-based solutions as they make our community and coastline more resilient and do not degrade our public beach. At Acola Creek, we have been presented with the opportunity to explore that. To that end, Surfrider worked with Crest to acquire federal funding for this project through a FEMA grant. We are committed to helping find solutions for this community and bring federal dollars to the state of Oregon and to this town. It's exciting, or we really care about the beach, and we care that it's around forever for everyone to enjoy. So it's exciting that this could serve as a model for other nature-based solutions in Oregon and beyond, getting us closer to the shared goal of protecting our beaches. After many months of the engineers modeling and studying the area, We're excited to be able to share more details about what this solution will look like and how it will fit into and strengthen the community, improve coastal resilience, and improve public access. Those were the main themes that stuck out from data collected during public workshops held here in Cannon Beach, organized by the Department of Land Conservation and Development. We heard community input that prioritized beach access for all, conserving a beautiful and natural landscape, and one comment that beach access is only important if there's a beach, highlighting the importance of conserving this public resource. People here want to see a healthy beach. So we're really excited to be at this point and for you to hear from Integral and Crest tonight. And we're excited to be moving this project into phase 2. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else in the audience for public comment? Okay, is there anyone on Zoom that would like to make public comment? If you would raise your hand, please.
Yeah, we have Diane Turner.
Hey, Diana?
Hello.
Hi,
I'm
Go
not
ahead.
sure, I'm not sure why you can't see me, but,
we can hear you though.
okay, I'm gonna go ahead. So Diana Turner, P O Box 211, Cannon Beach, Oregon. I'm speaking tonight on behalf of Friends of the Dunes at Cannon Beach, and I join Jan and Kaya in being so happy to speak to you tonight in support of the Ecola Creek Estuary Stabilization Project. And I congratulate you and all parties on the successful completion of phase 1, the study and design phase. I was looking at our file for this project and saw that our first letter of support to the City Council was in September 2020, 4 years ago. But our lobbying for this effort started even further back in 2018 in conversations with Bruce and Jeff Adams, lobbying for a proactive, community-driven solution for the eroding North Bank, which is what you have before you today. A solution wrought through the committed engagement of Breakers Point HOA, the city, and supported by Orca, Surfrider, and guided by Crest. It takes a village. We thank you for your ongoing commitment to this critical project representing several stakeholders coming together in search of the best solution for the community. As you well know, this is no small accomplishment. The FEMA grant of over $200,000 in funding is impressive and shows the government's commitment to this type of stabilization and its role in community climate change preparedness. The stabilization solution will be nature-based because Breakers Point does not qualify for hard armoring such as riprap or a seawall. A nature-based solution is also best for our public beach. We as a city have to invest in these type of green resiliency solutions to best protect us in our changing climate. Regular maintenance will be required, as is the case for any ocean shore stabilization structure, but particularly here in the dynamic estuary. This will require the city to level up in project monitoring and engagement as this revetment meets the substantial challenge of our dynamic estuary. I believe the city is up to the challenge, especially since erosion at this site has increased approximately 30 feet since 2016, and a single high water event could lead to 2 to 5 feet of erosion. The time to act is now for the security of Breakers Point and neighboring buildings, the beach and estuary ecosystems, and our town. Please continue to give your full support to this next phase of construction, thereby giving us a successful community project to celebrate. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else on Zoom? Did the first person stand up?
Yeah, it's not up now.
Okay, so no one else on Zoom for public comment?
Yep. David Rebel.
David, go ahead, please.
Yes, hi, I'm with the Integral team and I'm going to be, answering questions later and I can't actually answer. So I don't know if you could put me as a panelist as well from Zoom land. That would be great.
Yeah, we'll be happy to do that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. Or Rusty will be happy to do that. Head for. I might be able to. Okay, anybody else on Zoom? Anybody else in the audience for public comment? Okay, thank you very much. So our first item of business is resolution 2417. And Ashley going to.
Yes. Good evening, City Council. Ashley Driscoll, City Attorney's Office. So our first item before you is Resolution 2417, calling an election in the City of Cannon Beach on May 20th, 2025, amending the city's charter to clarify when voter approval is required for incurring debt. So as background on this resolution, at the City Council's meeting on August 13th of this year, Initiative Measure I-2024-1 captioned Charter Amendment requiring vote to incur debt qualified for the May 2025 ballot. Under state law, after an initiative measure is filed with the City Council, the city may prepare and submit a competing measure within 30 days to be considered at the same election. So we're talking about a ballot measure that will be considered in May 2025. So at that same council meeting, the council expressed some concerns regarding the initiative measure and delegated authority to the mayor to work with staff, which was myself, to prepare a ballot title for the council's consideration. A ballot title is essentially what appears in the voter's pamphlet. So it has three parts: a caption, a question, and a summary. What these items consist of is strictly circumscribed by state law. They have to be 10, 20, and 175 words, and they must be impartial, clear, and describe the major effects of the measure. Also in the ballot, also in the voter's pamphlet, but not in front of you tonight, is an explanatory statement of 500 words that provides some additional clarity on the measure and its effects. So if the council moves forward with the competing measure this evening, both the initiative measure and the competing measure will appear on the May 2025 ballot. Under the unusual circumstances that both measures are approved, conflicts will be resolved in favor of the measure with a greater number of affirmative votes. So if for some reason voters pass both measures, the one that receives the most votes will be the one that prevails in any conflicts. We did have a work session on September 3rd to discuss the ballot title and the potential charter amendment. The council requested some revisions, and those revisions are reflected in the materials in front of you tonight. Touching briefly on some additional analysis and information, the City Council has expressed that it believes that this competing measure is necessary due to the ambiguities present in and the unintended consequences of the initiative measure that will also appear on the ballot. The initiative measure requires the city to hold a public vote for, quote, non-emergency, quote, projects that require, and this is a quote, debts, bonds, or financing agreements over the debt approval level. However, the initiative measure is ambiguous because it doesn't provide the definitions necessary to determine how one calculates the debt approval level, what would constitute a project, and what would qualify as an emergency. The initiative measure is also ambiguous as to if voter approval is required. For example, does the council simply need to submit the issue to voters, or do the voters need to affirmatively approve the project before it can move forward? So if the initiative measure is enacted by voters, the council would need to take action to address some of these ambiguities. And by doing so, those actions could also result in additional litigation. The city's legal and financial teams have had an opportunity to review the initiative measures and have weighed in. According to the city's legal and financial team, if it is enacted, it may require the city to submit all potential debts to voters, regardless of amount of the debt or the type of project that is being funded. The council also understands and has expressed a concern that an additional voting requirement will increase costs and cause additional delays to these construction projects. By law, elections are held generally 4 times a year and require 90 days notice. And some of these elections also require the city to pay the election costs. These types of delays may prohibit the city from receiving grants or low-cost loans that require specific deadlines, and will generally result in cost escalation and loss of flexibility. So the competing measure, as drafted, fully counteracts the ambiguities present in the initiative measure and will allow the city to move forward on municipal projects that don't raise property taxes, such as funding the improvements to the city's water system without first holding a vote. So in your packet, I have provided the current charter language and the chart in the proposed charter language. And there is some changes from what was before you last week in response to some of the council's objections. I'm sorry, for some of the council's concerns. So the current language is that no debt shall be incurred contrary to municipal budget law or other relevant state law, nor regardless of state law shall general obligation bonds, except Bondcraft bonds, be issued without a vote of the people. The proposed language, how your charter would change, is as follows. City indebtedness may not exceed the debt limits imposed by state law. A charter amendment is not required to authorize city indebtedness. The city shall obtain voter approval prior to issuing general obligation bonds. The city may issue other types of debt. With this charter amendment, Mayor Knopp and I have worked on proposing a caption, question, and summary. And again, those are limited in word count, and they have to be impartial and clear and describe the major effects of the charter amendment. So with that, I'm going to stop and see if there's any questions for me from council.
Any questions, Brandon?
Oh, what's a Bancroft bond?
It's a really good question. A Bancroft bond is generally a type of bond for local improvement districts. When I was discussing this with bond counsel, she believed it was something left over from an issue in years past regarding Bancroft bonds. It's not typical charter language, and it's not part of the League of Oregon Cities model charter.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No questions, Ashley?
Okay. So if there's no questions, the city council can have a discussion and move to a motion.
Okay, is there any discussion?
Yes, thank you very, very much, Barb and
And
et
Ashley,
al. And Ashley. and
at all?
council. No, I feel much more comfortable with this as presented.
Anyone like to make motions?
I move to adopt resolution 2417. A resolution calling an election in the city of Cannon Beach on May 20, 2025. Amending the city's charter to clarify when voter approval is required for incurring debt.
Second,
Any further discussion? Roll call, please, Jen.
Counselor Ogilvy,
yes.
Council President McCarthy,
Yes.
Counselor Hayes, Counselor Kerr,
Yes.
Mayor Knox.
Yes. Okay, thank you again, Ashley.
Okay,
And city staff.
just some closing comments on this. So the
Sure.
process now is to provide the notice period for the ballot title. And the resolution also authorizes the city attorney to draft and file an explanatory statement for the competing measure. So you likely, again, this is for May 2025. So we will likely to be discussing this in the next year. But thank you, council.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ashley.
So I'm going to close the special meeting and open the work session. And the first item on the work session is scope of review termination. Good evening.
Evening, Mayor, Council. So tonight we're taking a look at another scope of review. Tonight, what we're taking a look at is at the August 15th plan design review board meeting. The design review board rendered this decision to deny an application by Breakers Point Condominiums to replace sections of wooden walkways with concrete. Breakers Point requested review of that decision, and the council's holding a scope of review to determine whether to grant the review on the record or if it needs to be a de novo hearing. The applicant just kind of indicated that there were some objections raised by the DRB members about the visibility, material choices and aesthetics. And they were unable to respond adequately to some of this assumptions because their testimony, the public hearing portion of the hearing was closed and they didn't feel they had the opportunity to speak to some of the concerns. They provided an outline of some of those concerns that talk about the current state of the walkways, wood, aggregate, maps of the areas, illustrations, and a lot of that information was part of the record. But they were asking for a de novo hearing on that material just to be able to make sure they're able to provide testimony and evidence on that, and staff was not objecting to that request. So the applicant was requesting the matter be done by de novo. Council typically reviews appeals on the record, but that's what they're requesting.
Any questions of Steve? Did you have a question?
No, I don't think I have a question.
Okay.
I think given that staff seems to think it doesn't object to having it de novo, and because the appellant here feels like they didn't get a chance to address the questions, that bothers me, that there were questions, there were things raised that they didn't get a chance to respond to. So for that reason, I guess I would agree that maybe de novo would work in this case. Usually we don't do that, but I think where there's an actual feeling that they didn't get, due process, we kind of should do it.
Did you watch the design review
No, I didn't.
meeting?
I did.
Yeah, I did too. And I didn't hear anything in that whatever information, that there would be any kind of information that could be submitted that could answer it. It was, as the criteria for a design review is, it's very subjective. And everything I heard was a subjective denial. And I don't know that there's anything they could submit that would change that. I would lean towards on the record.
I think I would just, if the appellant feels like they haven't gotten their fair day in court, that I just don't see what harm could be done, and they have a response to the objections. I don't see what harm could be done by, and since staff doesn't object to it, I would demur to the.
I think the number of issues too is relatively small. It's not like there's a tremendous amount of additional testimony that really needs to be added. So I think the scope of the issue is pretty narrow.
There's not going to be reams of paper. It'll probably be a couple pages.
Right. I think there might be a presentation addressing some of the issues that they indicate in their letter, just kind of mentioned, but we're talking the sidewalks in the space and the materials and things like that. So I don't think there's a tremendous amount of additional info that you'll be receiving to review this.
I feel comfortable with the staff's recommendation as well.
Was there a staff recommendation?
I have no problem making one that I would concur that I have no problem. I didn't object to it. I didn't formally make one, but if you need me to one, I would recommend that the council move and have the hearing de novo.
De novo is fine with me. Yeah.
You okay with that?
Yeah, it's not gonna.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, de novo it is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And just so you guys know, this will be on the October 1st meeting for a public hearing.
Good. Okay, thank you. Okay, now we have the Ocola Creek Bank Stabilization Report presentation. Come on up. Bruce, did you want to do any introductions?
No, we're totally confident with this.
I'm sure she is.
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm Denise Loftman. I'm the Director of CREST, the Columbia River Estuary Study Task Force. And I'm going to just take a brief 5 minutes or so just to make sure everyone's oriented around how we've gotten here, because there's, as Diana referred to, there's a little bit of a long history. And so my role is just to take about 5 minutes and help everyone be oriented. And then Kara, who's with the Integral Design team, is going to go through a much more technical presentation for you guys, kind of outlining the report that's in your packet. So this project started back, conversations started probably 2018, 2019. And Diana had reached out to me, Jeff Adams reached out to me, Breakers Point reached out to me and said, we need to find a solution for the north bank of Ecola Creek. It's looking like a hardened riprap seawall is not going to be an option here. Would Crest is, we do a lot of habitat restoration work up in the Columbia River. So we do a lot of design work in estuaries and many a year. And so, and the city is, Crest is a council of governments. The city is a member of Crest. And so it was a way for us to be able to assist the city. And in the projects that we do up north, they're often multi-stakeholder projects with multiple stakeholders, with multiple goals that sometimes can appear to be competing. So we're used to doing projects that are balancing the interests of many folks. And the way I think about my job is that if everybody is slightly irritated with me because I'm getting what they want, I
understand that.
Relate. And so, yes, I'm sure you all do. So I said, Crest will take this on and we'll see what we can come up with. And so one of my first goals was to try and figure out if there was a way to fund it so that the city and Breakers Point would not be on the hook to cover the vast majority of the cost. And FEMA had a lot of Oregon, through FEMA, Oregon Office of Emergency Management had significant natural hazard mitigation dollars. And I found out we could apply for a technical assistance grant that would pay for design and engineering. And once we have the designs, we can go back to FEMA through OEM and apply for construction dollars. So just so you're aware, that's the plan for this project. When we go after that FEMA money, there's a 25% match. And so we were able to secure $200,000 in match, or $200,000 in grant funds from FEMA. The city is contributing $30,000 in match to design. Breakers Point is contributing $20,000. And that was just we just negotiated that with Breakers Point and with Bruce. And we got to the end of the budgeting of putting the budget together. And I called Bruce and I said, I think we're going to need an additional 10,000. And he graciously said, okay, in this round, the city will kick that in. In the next round, the way that the match is divided up will be different. And we have an MOU. We had to put a signed MOU together. Surfrider Foundation stepped in to hold the grant. Because Crest is a council of governments and a governmental entity, we could not hold the grant unless we had a natural hazard mitigation plan, but we don't have any natural hazards to plan around. And so we needed a nonprofit or the city to hold it. And in this instance, it made sense for Surfrider to hold the grant. And so the grant started about 1.5 years ago. We went through an RFP process. Integral was the only firm that submitted a proposal, but it was a very good proposal and they've done a really good job. They've done a lot of research. They've done a lot of modeling. And as you'll see, their technical expertise has been excellent. And so they've put together this phase 1 report for all of you. And what we just wanted to do was come to give you all an update and to say, we're moving into phase 2 and to make sure that my goal was to make sure that all the stakeholders wanted to move forward before we moved into the next phase of design and engineering, which will take, what we have is a conceptual design and then all of the feasibility and basic information. And so phase 2 will be 30, 60, 90, and 100% designs and the permitting. So we will be ready to go into construction once we're able to secure grant funds. And so that's why we're here, to give you an update, answer questions, and just to make sure that the city is still supportive. I know Breakers Point, this went before their board about a month or two ago. They are supportive of moving forward. I know you heard from Kaya. They are Surfrider is supportive of moving forward. Friends of the Dunes and others are supportive of the project moving forward. So I'll let Kara move into the technical presentation side of it.
Thank you.
Yes.
Can I just have you,
Yeah, I can do it for, it could be remote, either one.
I realize I have a bunch of like little things. Maybe I'll take the remote, so I won't have to bug you the whole time. All right. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for letting me talk to you all today. I'm excited to talk about the phase 1 work we've done so far. We've been working on this for about a year now. David Revel is on the phone, can hop in periodically. Yeah, it's been a really exciting project. I'm excited to talk about it. See if I can get this to actually work. I assume it's just the big button,
Should be the one there should be right and the left button.
the right one.
And it doesn't appear to be working, does it?
Well, next slide. So just a little overview of the project site. This is on the north side of Ecola Creek. Ongoing erosion, chronic erosion has been threatening city infrastructure, Breakers Point condos, and utilities in the area. It's located again on north of Ecola Creek. It's an important recreational area. I know this is Madeline's line, but it's also my son's favorite beach now. It's a great, family beach for little kids. The beach access from Larch Road is an important access route, as well as emergency access route to the area, as well as creek and estuary habitat, and then infrastructure as well. The condos, Larch Road, there's stormwater, sewer and water, as well as a gas line right in that general vicinity. And the scope of our work for phase 1 was to really evaluate the conditions that were driving erosion at this site, as well as to develop a preferred alternative concept to move forward into the engineering design of phase 2. Next slide, please. Thank you. So we did a lot of background characterization of this site, looking at different lines of evidence and lots of available data. There's 2 different large maps. Sorry, I'm gonna move things around, but the figure on the right is looking at elevation change over between 2016 and 2024. And those little brown hotspots are around 15 feet of erosion. It's really focused around Larch Road, but also near the condos. And so you can see this step back of the bank face over time is averaged around 3 to 4 feet per year. And then we also looked at kind of the dune face itself, or the bank toe, where that beach meets the bank face, and looked at how that moved over time as well. And so the picture on the left is looking at that migration, and around 30 feet of toe movement backwards towards Larch Road between 2016 and 2024. And so this has been kind of an ongoing erosion of the site has been over the past couple of decades. And it's important to note this 3 to 4 feet per year is an average erosion rate, but this really happens over very intermittent storm events. And so most of this happens in 1 or 2 events. Thank you. There have been numerous prior mitigation efforts to stabilize and mitigate this erosion that's been happening at the site. So the top right figure is of a sand placement. I believe that's in 2014 or 2016. There have been 3, 4,000 to 7,500 cubic yard placements in that area over the past, decade and a half. In 2016, they installed geotextile wrapped clay and sand burritos with willow plantings. And then also the city of Cannon Beach maintains beach access primarily through those small volume placements. You see the dump truck on that bottom there. It's important for maintaining that access route. There's a human element to erosion here. People walk down that slope, it brings sand down, and that small placement sort of stabilize the area from a human element, but the ongoing erosion kind of persists. And so these various solutions have all lasted maybe 1 to 4 years in lifespan, depending on interannual and seasonal conditions. And they've worked in a sense that they've bought more time. They've limited kind of the retreat of the bank, but there is still this ongoing, even with these placements, ongoing erosion of that bank. Next slide, please. So a big part of our focus was, again, looking at what's driving these erosion events. And it turns out it's a combination. It's a very complex site with creek flow and waves and high tides. But these high tides during wave storm events lead to these events that can drive erosion. And so that's really the key factor that's creating these erosion events. The river flow can modify the creek channel. So seasonal variability in river dynamics lead to deepening or widening of that creek, and that allows more wave energy and more waves into the site. So creek conditions sort of impact how much erosion happens, or the seasonal dynamic of this site. And then the other key piece of this is the erosion of that toe. So the water level and waves run up right up to the bank face, and you get erosion of the toe of that bank, and then that leads to slope failure and complete step back of the bank and retreat. Slide, please. So one of the things we've done is look at, compile a wide range of evidence, including video evidence. So we've got, this is a stills from a video taken by a Breakers Point resident looking southward from the Breakers condo area. And this happens to be a king tide. This is January 2021 during a storm event. So the graph on the left is just the conditions of time, but it's a king tide superimposed with a large offshore storm event and wave conditions. And so those big Pacific Ocean waves and breaking offshore can bounce off the southern seawall and also bend into the estuary. And so what we see in these conditions is actually breaking waves propagating up to the site on the northern side of Ecola Creek. And so that breaking waves, even though they're smaller than what's hitting the Pacific Ocean and the areas north and south of Ecola Creek, they're still breaking waves hitting this bank. This is more modeling results, but the impact of these waves really increases with tides. So what I'm showing is the red circle is the project area, and that's sort of Ecola Creek in the offshore. And the hotter colors are larger wave heights. And this is the same offshore wave conditions, but with increasing tidal water level. So as tides increase, you have more wave energy that moves into the site and greater chance of erosion. So it's really this coupling of these dynamics that can drive these large scale erosion events. The creek is an important piece of this whole picture as well. It's not the primary mechanism driving erosion, this is a simulation of a 20-year flood event, and the green colors are higher velocities, the blues are lower velocities. And those higher velocities can really move sand and modify the creek channel. So we see deepening and widening of the creek during larger river events. But this isn't the primary mechanism driving erosion at that site. We tend to see reduced river flow in the area of the site, but the takeaway from this is larger creek sort of volume, width and cross section means larger waves at the site. And the next slide really shows this. So this is a series of different aerial images of that creek itself from 2012, 2021. And there's periods where the creek is very narrow and shallow, and that really limits how big the waves can enter the site are, versus deeper, wider creek channels let a lot more wave action and wave energy into the area, leading to this more significant erosion. And one key sort of line of evidence around this is those clay burritos were installed in 2016. The top right picture is a pretty narrow creek condition, I guess. And there was a pretty big wave event that occurred in 2016, and the clay burritos were able to withstand that event and fared really well. The following winter in 2017, the creek channel is much bigger and wider and deeper, allowing larger waves into the site. And that was when we saw a big 4-foot retreat of the clay burrito and the bank face during that larger event. Next slide, please. So this is a little simulation, hopefully it plays, of those sort of high tide wave action on that bank. You can kind of see where the beach meets the bank is where we see erosion occurring. And again, these erosion events are very intermittent. It happens when we have high tides coupled with wave events, and can lead to 3 to 4 feet or more. You can go next, sorry, if the generally erosion increases with higher waves, obviously, but also higher water level. You can keep happening through, but we can see 10+ feet of erosion during a single event. That little picture on the bottom shows kind of the combination effect. So we see, during a wave event, we get erosion of the toe. There's some step back of that, and then that destabilizes the whole bank. And so you end up with an ultimate, the whole bank face retreats similar amount due to kind of slow failure over time. And we can see, I didn't bring images, but you'll see images of that at that site in particular, where you see sort of the scarping of the toe and then the failure of the bank itself. And so the takeaway is this 3 to 4 feet of annual erosion occurs in really isolated events, and you can have events that really step back the bank significantly, up to 10 feet, but it's sort of the conditions have to be right to get this to happen. Next slide, please. So that's sort of the summary of the physics and the evaluation that we did to date. And then the constraints of the site are such that we want to sort of design the best possible solution for this area. It's a relatively small footprint. So in that image, you can see sort of the wetter sand is actually high tide water line, and you can see how compact that is with the bank relative to Larch Road. The emergency access and beach access route is from Larch Road. The red line is a gas line. The blue is approximate water and sewer lines. And so all of this is relatively close to that high tide water line. What was I gonna say here? I think that's it. Sorry, takeaway. So that 3 to 4 feet per year would require, without any action, relocation of some of this infrastructure within the next 5 to 10 years, depending on kind of how these things all line up over time. Another key constraint of this site is Oregon State Planning Goal 18. This means that the Breakers Point condo area is not eligible for a beachfront protected structure. The site to the south of Ecola Creek is, and they have a seawall in that area. Go to the next slide. There's a pretty good reason for this. I think Kaya kind of mentioned this as well, but when we have a hardened structure, that tends to cause erosion of the beach over time. And so in this particular location, you'd expect any kind of armoring or hardened structure, riprap, to result in scouring of the beach in front of that structure. And so over time, you might end up losing that beach due to a hardened armored structure. And so that's really it's not permittable to have a hardened structure, but there's a good reason for it. It would definitely change the beach in this area. And I think preserving the recreational use and the habitat of this beach is an important piece of the whole puzzle here. Next slide. So as part of this evaluation, we looked at a different range of alternative concepts. The first one really is no action, or kind of continued small placements to mitigate the human element to erosion and maintain access. As we mentioned, you see around 3 to 4 feet per year with 10 to 20 feet potentially of erosion, especially if you include sea level rise impacts that will require relocation of infrastructure. The next option is sand placement and nourishment. This is something that's been leveraged in the past. These large sand or moderate sand placements typically have a 1 to 3 year lifespan. So they're an option, but the stakeholders have really expressed interest in a more robust solution here. The third one is sort of a soft protection. Again, we've tried this at this site. In particular, vegetation of this area is susceptible to undermining from that kind of toe erosion effect. So I think we're actually seeing that now because there's a lot of dune grass that's taken over that bank, but you can see kind of the falling down of dune grass as it's undermined and sort of collapsing the bank still. Hard protection is not permittable. We also mentioned it's probably not a great solution at this site for a lot of other reasons as well. And then cobbles or dynamic revetment have been successful in many other sites, but because of the sort of smaller footprint of the site and the nature of the sandy beach, cobbles are likely to change a sandy beach to a cobble beach. That's probably not something that the city will be super excited about. And so the last solution we've really landed on is a natural hybrid solution. So it's leveraging a lot of different types of materials and combining them together in a way to stabilize the erosion that's occurring in the constraints in the footprint of the site. You go to the next slide. We've got a concept drawing. There's a few different options that we've played around with in this, but really it's a woody woody structure, a woody mesh that we've buried with different depths. So the one on the left has buried root wads, the one on the right has deeper wood pieces. We looked at different numbers of logs, so different cross bracing, potential lashing with a natural fiber rope that would be degradable. And then burying that woody mesh and woody cross bracings with sand and cobble to reinforce it. So ensuring that it stays in place during sort of smaller scour events. These can have different elevation profiles, and then vegetating the upper part of that with dune grass, native dune grass, to further stabilize any kind of bank failure and to reduce foot traffic ultimately. So the benefits of this is it uses material found on site. All these pictures, with the exception of cobble, have all been taken from the site itself. There's a large volume of sand to the north of Ecola Creek. Woody driftwood material is available in West Shirley. We can also source that independently, but it is natural to the system. The woody material can provide reinforcement of that toe within a smaller horizontal footprint compared to something like a cobble revetment. And then the buried cobble and sand provide additional reinforcement to stabilize and ensure that woody material isn't undermined and dislodged. We propose a sand placement over the top to kind of hide and soften and retain the current bank look, more or less. And then the other flip side of this is this works with nature. You know, there's a lot of creek type settings where woody material deposits on the beach that forms natural catch place for sand that comes down. And so there's a potential that we could scour out some sand during an erosion event, and then as creek flows bring more sand down, the woody material can trap and accumulate more sand compared to especially a sandy bank alone. And then again, vegetation of the dune can limit further slumping or failure of the bank. I want to point out a few, this is like relatively new, but there are a lot of successes in nature-based solutions. These are just a snapshot of a few. The one in the center is a dynamic revetment in Columbia River. It was built in 2013 and still going strong. The top right is a Cape Lookout. It's a buried, hybrid dune that was built in 2000. It's also still withstood numerous large wave events and still doing well. The bottom right is actually a buried log jam, similar to what we're proposing for Ecola Creek, and that's protecting that bathroom structure. I think Dave can correct me but it's also withstood a number of large storm events, I think 20+ year wave conditions at the site. And then the top left is another, you can see the effects of a seawall on the beach loss in that top picture. So that's before construction. You have a lot of loss of habitat, and then after construction using natural materials, sand and planting to mitigate against erosion. I think that's all I have. Denise, do you want to? I guess the next phase is really finalizing or moving forward into more engineering design. So this is all very conceptual at the moment. Things around like the exact profiles, number of logs, volumes of material, more provide cost estimates, things of that nature will happen in phase 2. This is to get to a preferred concept we think will work well at this site.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. How far down do you bury them?
That's a good question. We're using our modeled analysis. So we expect kind of a couple of feet of vertical scour. And so we're using that as a basis to determine how deep it needs to go. So we don't want it to be undermined. So we're thinking around 3 to 5 feet is probably the minimum depth you'd want it to go down. Again, to make sure it doesn't get undermined. But that's, yeah, good question. Dave, you want to?
Yeah, hello.
Hi.
From Zoomlandia. Yeah, some of the analysis that we've done in the modeling shows sort of the scour and the variability in the beach seasonally and during events. So we'll use that information to inform how deep we have to go. We want to go obviously just deeper than that or farther back on the profile. So there's a couple different ways to reduce the maintenance cost and where we put it on you know, whether it's really close to the existing toe or closer or more landward will sort of determine how deep it has to go, but also what the future maintenance costs and things like that will also be.
Around 5 feet, but TBD.
Did you guys hear that?
Yes.
Yep,
Yeah, we did. Thank
Okay,
you.
good.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Wrap it up, Denise.
Yes, I will write this up. So, in terms of next steps, we'll just move forward into phase 2, as long as everyone's comfortable with that. And so we'll move into design, and engineering, and move forward so we'll have designs and specs. We have not yet used the match that the city and Breakers Point agreed, because this part of the project was a smaller portion of the budget, but now we're gonna need all of the funds in order to get the rest of it done. So we would come to the city and say, the MOU, what we agreed to, and we'll need to utilize those funds in this next phase. That's already been approved. You know, we have the signed MOU and it's in the budget, the city's budget. So really, this was just an opportunity to give you an update, remind everybody how we got here and the multi-stakeholder nature and the big partnership that's come out of this, in the hopes of designing something that, what I will say with nature-based solutions is people sometimes think with hardened structures, like you can set it and forget it. And even with hardened structures, there's maintenance. So just to be upfront, there will be maintenance required for this, right? Sand may erode, some of the cobble may erode. It will need to be put back, and like the wood structure will need to be covered again with more sand and things like that, in order to allow it to stay in place over a longer period of time. The other thing that I would say is I've spoken with some Army Corps engineers that work in the ocean environment a lot about this site. These are engineers that have been coming here since the 80s. They watched Breakers Point be built. And I just thought, let me just call them and ask them about what we're thinking about doing. And I said, you know, it's nature-based, it's going to require a lot of maintenance. And they said the cobble revetment, which is a nature-based solution at the south jetty of the Columbia River, so massive Pacific Ocean forces, it also requires maintenance. So this is something that just happens over time. But what he did say was, he said, you're using a nature-based solution like the clay burritos. And he said, people say the clay burritos failed. They didn't actually fail. They gave us time. We've lost 30 feet since 2016, but those clay burritos were in place over a portion of that period of time. And we don't know what the difference would have been if they'd not been there. And he's like, and so what these projects do is they just give us more time. And so that's what we're looking to get, right? Is some time from this, with the understanding that they will require maintenance. And the other thing he said about these nature-based solutions is that when they do unravel, what was in the clay burrito just unraveled. It wasn't like there was plastic or metal or things like that that was littering the beach. And in this instance, it's wood and cobble and sand. And he's like, so if it did start to come apart, we could put it back together. And if pieces of it kind of come apart, they're natural materials that you see there anyway. And so from my perspective, this is the solution that's available to us because of the permitting limitations. And so, because we're working in with many constraints at this location. And so we're doing the best we can to kind of find the best option available to us, given the regulatory constraints, the recreation constraints, and then the need to protect infrastructure and buildings. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yes.
And I'm sorry if I didn't ask. So, the associated property to, I'll call it the east, that it was listed as pink. Is there a reason that they can't be involved in the project?
They're not interested in being involved. And I might let, if city staff wanted to jump in here, they're welcome to do so, but they were very clearly not interested in participating. Now, I do know there are other, property owners to the east who have recently said we would be interested in participating. And so, in fact, I think they may be here this evening. And so we would be, we will talk to them as we move forward into phase 2 and try to figure out if there's a way to incorporate their properties into the project, with the understanding that that one property owner is just very clearly not interested in having anything done on his property. And so we'll need, that will take a little figuring out.
Okay, at one time, we was on the planning commission at the time, that there was talk of putting riprap. Are they eligible for that, or is their property no longer eligible?
The property where they do not want us involved, they really want to put riprap. Because there was no development there, they are not eligible. Now, the property that's just behind it is eligible for riprap.
Okay.
Because it was developed, prior to when everything was grandfathered in. And so it's put us in a place where there's, it's a little tricky when landowners don't want to work. We bump up against this in our habitat restoration work, and we just try to find a way to not work on those properties, but to work with the landowners that are interested in working with us.
Okay.
It's a really good question, though.
Thank you.
Yeah.
David has his hand up.
David, do you have a comment? Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I completely agree with what Denise said. The constraints on this project are going to really be important to understand as we move forward in further steps of design. There's important wastewater and water supply infrastructure that the city maintains that is somewhere in Larch Lane, but we don't know exactly where that is. In effort to do this as frugally as possible, understanding whether we could harvest some of the drift logs that have accumulated in Les Shirley would be another really important aspect. So sourcing some of the materials, understanding what kind of sand volumes the city's doing in their sort of beach access and maintenance work through public works would also be really helpful. We want to create a project that buys more time than 1 to 4 years and can withstand an event and not fail. But a lot of that depends on where we put it, how long the orientation, and that Cape Lookout State Park project was my master's thesis, and that was built in 1999, and it is still here 25 years later on a very energetic coastline. We can do something here that can last for a while with hopefully minimal maintenance, and that's kind of our goal to support the city. But we could really use some input as we go from city and city staff as we move into the next phase of more detailed engineering design so that we can make sure we're making the best decisions and assumptions as we move forward. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Any other comments, questions?
No, it's exciting.
Yes, it is. Very, very exciting. Okay, next we have, speaking of exciting, we have the Cannon Beach Rural Fire Protection Prepared Food Tax Update. Good evening.
Evening. Did your remote work this time? He's gonna be click for me. Right now, there's no. So it's. For us. Application.
Well. Um,
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
you have other things on the agenda?
Thank you.
You have other things on the agenda?
I don't, what else is on the agenda?
I can go try to recopy it on a thumb drive, is what I was thinking. Without it,
Oh, you are,
I'm it.
Read the rest of the agenda.
well, except for good of the order, but
Some reason it won't open.
Yeah, I can't read it.
I didn't have a lot. Do you have the last one we did?
but we don't want to rerun.
Well.
Yeah, I heard it at the library.
Yeah.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
I mean, I can talk through it. I only had 6 slides. It was supposed to be short. That was the whole idea.
Slides.
Um,
And then maybe we could have it.
And I can send it back out to council. It was short.
Okay. Yeah.
So my point, what I wanted to do tonight, unfortunately, I don't know why it won't load. Was just kind of talk about, when we were here in June. Usually we're here in February, or March and September, but because of, agendas, it got pushed back to June. We're here in June. So now it's actually into the next budget year. The food tax is extremely important to the operations of the fire district. That is kind of what got us going in the path we are today. And without that, it's integral in our operations. So what the food tax does, and I had actually broke down and completely broke out each thing of where the money went, because I thought that was important. And so for this budget year, there is 874,000 expected from the food tax. How I budget that is I budget what we received in the last year of the food tax. Okay. And so that's how I budget for it. So there's 874,000 in food tax. What that does is it pays for 3 full-time firefighters. Those are the first 3 we hired. It pays for the fire marshal position. And it retained the other position. We had one grant funded position. When I was hired, there was a grant funded position. It retained that position. So that was the original goal of the food tax in its inception with the fire district. As it has grown just a little bit, it's allowed us to do a couple other things. And what it's allowed us to do is back in 2021, roughly, there was a state grant that came out for summer staffing. It was $35,000. So we hired some summertime help. And it was so beneficial to us that our board's like, hey, why don't we look at next year, making that year-round part-time and use that grant fund, to offset the summertime. Again, a very beneficial, it was, and so as the food tax grows, now that food tax, we are now staffing 2 part-time positions every day, with the help from the food tax. That is extremely important to us because now I have 2 full-time on 24 hours a day and then 2 part-time. Part-time, they work 12-hour days, but most of them live elsewhere. They live Beaverton, they live Corvallis, so they stay the night. They get a stipend for staying the night. And so it continues the staffing. So that's what that food tax has done in that realm with a part-timer. It's created that other side of it having 2 per day. And then the last thing that it's being extremely beneficial for is housing. We had a student program prior, but we had no place to put them. And so the student program, they just kind of worked at the station, but they didn't really live here because we didn't have a place to put them. But with the food tax, we'll be able to lease a couple places. We have a duplex, and then where we have the fire marshal at has a couple ADUs. And so now we have housing for students. And so now I have 5 students, which just adds to our staff more. So those are the things I want to talk about that the food tax has done. Again, it's just extremely important to our operations. And I had a slide about call volume and kind of where it's gone the last 3 months. But like I told the board, I told the library board, is with our increased calls, and you look at that and the percentage of increase, it doesn't feel that way. Yeah, we're a lot busier than we were 3 years ago, but it's a lot different because now we have staff. It's not the couple duty officers running every call and wondering if there's anybody else in town. Now we have staff that's going and handling I'll say the day-to-day calls. But now we also have callback. So the off-duty staff coming back for major incidents. And then it's gave the volunteer kind of a rest that they're not having to come for every call. They're coming for the major incidents. And so we're getting them back more for what we need them for. And a perfect example, I got 2 perfect examples that I want to share with the council of what this has done. Most everybody probably knows about the accident, Milepost 24 the other day in Seaside. Okay. We had 7 that went to that. During that time, I still had 3 here at the station because I have volunteer and I have off duty going back, restaffing the station. Structure fire in Seaside the other night, or actually is Warrenton, but our engine moved up to cover Seaside as everybody else goes. Engine moves up, call back and volunteer come in, and we're still staffing the station. And so those are the really important things that this is doing. And that's a combination of career staff and career staff coming back. Our career staff have a residence requirement that they have to live within 30 minutes. 3 of them live in the city. 3 of them live, or 2 of them live at Seaside, and 1 lives out just a little farther. And then our other 2 daytime captains also live in Seaside. And so they're all coming back as they're available to. And then, so the callback is a combination of career staff, volunteer, and students. All work together to make this happen. So that was what my presentation would be tonight. Unfortunately, it wouldn't open, but that was it in a nutshell. Is there any questions I can answer?
How's everything going with the city and getting your funds and all of
Great.
it? Perfect.
I have no issues.
Good.
It's exactly what the IGA says. We receive them right at 45 days at the close of it, because it closes, let's say, July 1. They have 30 days to submit that to the city, and then the city now needs time to process. So there's another 15 days there. And so, yeah, we get them.
Good.
No issue there. We plan on it and there.
Other questions?
You mentioned at the library, of course, the problem of the ambulance, and you said you hoped you might be able to buy in on ambulance service with Seaside.
So there's been a struggle with ambulance for a long time. And it's been in waves. Recently, it's been a little more of a challenge than it's been in the past. With that, as many of you know, Seaside purchased an ambulance here a year or so ago. I can see the future of us doing some kind of intergovernmental agreement with Seaside of ambulance service. If it continues to deteriorate with medics and then being able to staff, I don't see us ever staffing an ambulance here. I don't have the room for it. I don't have staff for it. It's really quite cost prohibitive. But what I do see a future of is a consortium. I think that's what is profitable and what is palatable to municipalities is making a consortium. And so it becomes a South County ambulance consortium that we all work to pay into and to make an ambulance service work. We've had several meetings with the county and regarding the ambulance service and trying to improve it. It has been a struggle for the last several months. The positive of it, I flip a little positive. We've had several talks in our board meeting about it, but the positive of it that I have with our fire district versus some others in the county is that all of our career staff will be EMT advanced shortly. Most of them will be. And the goal is that actually we'll get to the intermediate level. And we have 3 of us right now that are. And so we can have that care already started when the ambulance gets there. And when they arrive and they don't have that level of care on the ambulance, we already have it and can transport in with the ambulance. And it's not that big a deal for us. We're not very far from Seaside to send somebody up to get them and bring them back. Versus use Napa, for example. It's a huge problem for Napa because that's a long ways out of their responsibility to go into Astoria and get back. So on that side of it, for us, it's not as much of a problem as other agencies it is.
So does Seaside have coverage with medics also? Or is it?
As far, so
Medics ambulance?
Medics Ambulance has the ambulance contract for the entire county.
Right.
What Seaside has, the contract with medics, that when Medics Ambulance is unable to provide an ambulance in the South County, that they will provide that ambulance when they are available.
Okay.
There is not a guaranteed commitment from Seaside Fire that they will do that. It is when they can.
Okay.
And typically that ability to ends about 8 o'clock at night. Seaside Fire doesn't really want to do it at night because they don't have 24-hour staffing. They have daytime staffing.
Okay.
Us and Astoria are the only ones that have 24-hour staffing.
So what is this? So Seaside, it's Seaside firefighters that are manning the ambulance? And what is the skill level of the Seaside firefighters compared to the skill level, medical skill level of Cannon Beach?
So per the ambulance agreement, it has to be at least an advanced EMT on the ambulance. And so anybody that's staffing their ambulance is at least an advanced. And most of their guys are intermediate or paramedic.
And how does that compare to what we have?
We have advanced and intermediate. I don't have any paramedics
Yet.
yet. We'll see. That's a lot of money putting out to them. I have some guys that are very interested in going that far, but that's going to be a little bit down the road.
But Seaside has paramedics.
They have, I think, 2 on their staff.
So you'll send us the slides?
I will. I'll send it to Jen and she'll get it out to you.
Yeah. Anybody else have any questions or anything?
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah.
Thank you.
See, you didn't need
Thanks, Mark.
video enhancement. You can do it. Take your jump drive though.
Yeah. If it kills.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. So we're ready for good of the order. I do have one item. We happen to have a person in this room that's celebrating his birthday with us. It's so nice that he feels so about our relationship that he can spend his birthday with us. So happy birthday, Rusty.
Thank you.
We were gonna sing, but yeah,
But we're gonna spare you apparently.
well, we still could.
For his birthday, he asked that we don't.
Oh, that's our gift.
It's usually my.
Happy to give you that present.
And I don't even want to know how old you are because then that makes me feel even older. So happy birthday. Thank you for, and the night is still young.
Yes.
Yeah,
Unless somebody else has a really long good of the order.
I have a short,
Okay.
it's really short one. It's kind of good news. The tree focus group, when they did a presentation to the planning commission, there was some questions from different commissioners about not having expertise in support of the new ordinance. And so I'm really happy that we now have a specialist from Oregon Department of Forestry who has met with us once just to answer to get a scope of what we want her to do. And we will be meeting with her as long as we need to. We sent her a copy of what we've have so far. And I'm sure we're gonna get, lots of things that she'll have to comment on, and we will listen to them.
Good.
So, because she is an expert. So.
Yeah, that is good news.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank the group for us. Anyone else?
Coffee with the counselors next Monday, 10 a.m.
That means that trail cleaning's right behind it on that Saturday. Not sure the location, but we'll find out. Anything else?
How many more meetings do we have this month?
So you guys are meeting next week to approve the findings for the Stephanie Inn.
Okay.
And that should be your last meeting of September. I forgot to check the poll for October meetings today. I got sidetracked, so I'll look and see if everyone's answered, and then we can kind of have an idea of what we have for October.
Okay.
Do we have backyard burning on next week too?
It came out.
No, so I moved, we had to move and rearrange a few things.
Okay,
So that actually got moved to November because we didn't want to have it, we weren't ready for it. Staff wasn't ready to pull, didn't have all the information ready, and we didn't want to do it in October when Lisa wasn't here.
And
So-
what was that subject that you're?
backyard burning.
Oh, that's right.
Have you told Steve that? Steve, Waite, the person who talked about it? Here.
No, I did not.
You need to, because I told him it was going to be in September 17th. So
Okay, no, we originally had it planned for tonight.
that's what I thought. Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, if you could let him know when it's going to be, I'd appreciate that.
Do that.
Thank you.
So we have a September 17th meeting for the Stephanie and findings, and then anything else that might come up.
Between now and when the packet gets posted, I believe the packet will be posted before Friday. Bill and Steve are working on the findings.
Okay, great. Okay, anything else?
Should I ask Jen to send it to me again?
Anything else, guys?
Oh,
September 4th.
is that when it came?
Yeah, I'll
I
forward it
don't
to you right now.
Okay, he's,
Okay.
Brandon's forwarded me the poll. I didn't see it. Okay.
Okay, anything else? Okay, happy birthday, Russ.